Okay. So here another important part is basics of hardware. Okay. So what we will do it, not like earlier, only we'll go with some important questions wise, but you must read everything. Just read at least once, you will get an idea again things. Okay. So few important things we'll discuss. The first thing is, what's the difference between RAM and ROM? RAM and ROM both are primary memories. RAM, random access memory, ROM, read-only memory. RAM store data temporarily, ROM store data permanently. Okay. RAM is an example of volatile memory. ROM is an example of non-volatile memory. Okay. Next. So what is this meant by volatile memory? So volatile memory devices need a power supply. If you power off the device, so the data in the volatile memory device is gone. Data loss. Like a RAM, if power off your system, data in the RAM will be gone. Non-volatile memory devices, even you shut down your system, you power off your device, still the RAM data will be remains in the non-volatile memory device. Okay. Again, ROM is a simple single chip. In this chip, already data and instructions are built inside. Means already instructions and data is there. We are unable to put anything inside the ROM. It is already there. That's why it is permanent memory, non-volatile. Other examples of non-volatile memory, other examples, hard disk, SSDs, pen drive, SD cards, these are all non-volatile memory devices only. RAM, we can able to add a RAM to your system. We can remove the RAM, we can extra RAM, we can replace existing RAM also, you can do it. But ROM, we can't do it because it is fixed on your motherboard. Okay, this is an important question, that is, what's the difference between RAM and ROM? What is a processor? Processor is it's a brain of your computer. It's a single chip central processing unit. It performs arithmetic and logical functions. What are the main manufacturers of processor currently in the market for our desktops and laptops is Intel and AMD. What is your system processor? Go to the task manager, click on this performance CPU. This is my processor. See, Intel Core i5-10210U model. This is my processor. And my process clock speed is 1.6 gigahertz basic clock speed. Okay. So what is my cache memory? L3, L6 B cache memory. 4 core, 8 logical processors. Okay. So I'm using Intel processor, i5 model processor I'm using. Okay. Yeah, generally people asking what's the difference between 32-bit and 64-bit. In 32-bit processor support 32-bit instructions and data execution. 64-bit processor support 64-bit instructions and data. Okay, 64-bit processor also support higher RAM capacity, so you can able to run big or complex applications on the 64-bit system. Simple. Okay. System restarts itself again and again. Troubleshooting. If system is restart itself again and again. What are the possibilities? CPU is getting overheated. Why CPU is getting overheated? That CPU actually covered with a heat sink. Okay. And heat sink fan, heat sink thermal paste. Okay. To protect your processor from overheating. But in case heat sink paste not applied properly, or heat sink is not placed properly, or a dust formation on the heat sink, or heat sink fan is not running. So in that case is what happened? Processor is getting overheated. To prevent it from damaging, from overheating, if CPU is getting overheated means CPU will be damaged. Okay, to prevent it from damage, system restart the system restart itself again and again. So what to do? So go to the open the cabinet, remove the main power supply, Check the heat sink. If any dust formation on the heat sink, clean the heat sink. Okay, make sure that heat sink fan is running or not. Clean the heat sink. Place the heat sink properly on the processor. Check also heat sink paste is properly applied or not. Otherwise, apply the heat sink paste. Place the heat sink properly. Place the heat sink fan properly and make sure all are running properly. Means heat sink fan is running or not. Okay. Okay. Clean up the dust. Place the heat sink paste. Apply the heat sink paste. Place the heat sink. Place the heat sink fan properly. That's it. And connect the power supply, power on the system. So if you don't get a restarting multiple times, restart again and again, means issue is resolved. One troubleshooting. So what type of RAM we use it for desktop is DIMM, DIMM, dual inline memory module for desktop purpose. SODIMM type of RAMs used for laptop purpose. SODIMM, SODIMM, small outline dual inline memory module for laptop purpose. Dual inline memory module DIMM for a desktop purpose. Okay. What happens if RAM is failure? Okay. RAM is one of the primary device. Okay, main device like CPU, RAM, ROM, your motherboard, other components. Okay, some on motherboard components, some are like primary components. So what if your RAM is loose connected? RAM's edges, this RAM edges, dust formation. RAM slots not working or dust formation on the RAM slots. Okay, RAM is not working. RAM is not inserted properly. What happened? When you power on your system, on the screen, nothing is there. It's a blank screen. On my screen, nothing is there. It's a blank screen. You may hear the continuous beep sounds. Okay. Power LED is blinking, but keyboard LED is not blinking. Nothing on monitor. No error messages also. Meaning is some primary component, a CPU, motherboard, or a RAM issue is there. Possibility RAM, right? So either RAM is loose connected. So remove the RAM. First, remove the cabinet, remove the power supplies, remove the RAM, and reinsert the RAM properly. RAM dust formation. Clean the RAM edges with a eraser and clean the RAM slots with a hand blower. Next, replace the RAM. Change the RAM slot from one RAM slot to another RAM slot. For example, on first RAM is inserted, not working. Put the RAM into another slot and check it again. Cross-verify the RAM is really working or failure. Check with your system or check with any other system. Okay, RAM. Or check with a different RAM to your system. Cross-verify the RAM. If RAM is not working, replace the RAM. Okay, that's the thing. Your system, you power on the system, nothing on the screen, blank screen. Issue. Troubleshooting also, a few points I will tell here. Okay. Next, ROM, read-only memory. It contains built-in instructions and data. Okay, it contains a program called a BIOS, Basic Input Output System. What is a BIOS? Very important question again. What is BIOS? Basic Input Output System. It is a firmware. This BIOS is a program which is inside of your ROM chip. That's why ROM chip is called as BIOS chip. Okay, the BIOS is a firmware. BIOS helps your system to boot up. Okay, it helps your system to boot. BIOS help your system to perform post, power on, self-test. BIOS recognize hardware devices. BIOS helps your system to locate and load operating system. BIOS helps your system to locate and load operating system. Okay, these are the main important points about your BIOS. Post, power on, self-test. What is post? Power on self-test. When you power on your system test itself to make sure all the components working on mat and primary components working on mat. Okay, that is a post, power on self-test. In case of any primary component like a RAM not working means post failure will occur. Post failure is occur means you got a blank screen like this, nothing on the monitor type. This BIOS, new version of BIOS is called a UEFI, Unified Extensible Firmware Interface. BIOS new version of BIOS is UEFI, Unified Extensible Firmware Interface. Nowadays, most of our system using UEFI, not BIOS. This BIOS chip manufacturer, different chip manufacturers are there. AMI BIOS, Edward BIOS, Phoenix BIOS, Dell BIOS, HP BIOS, like that, different manufacturers also there. The BIOS contains information, your hardware information, hardware settings related information, boot priority information is also there inside your BIOS. To check that settings or change the settings, you have to go to the BIOS setup or BIOS settings. BIOS setup or BIOS settings. How? Power on the system, press the BIOS key. Generally, the BIOS key is delete button or F2. Most other possible second possibility is F2. Remaining depends upon your manufacturer. So they may be different, like F10, F12, F11, F9, like that. So most cases in the olden days, from olden days, delete button is the most your BIOS key. For some system, you have to. And so for other system, it can be any other than that one. Okay. Sometimes you have to press function key plus you have to like this. If it is a laptop, definitely. So how to go to BIOS settings? Power on your system, press the BIOS key, either delete button or F2 button to go to the BIOS setup. Okay. So you can, when you go to BIOS setup, you can able to check and change the date and time. You can secure your BIOS settings from another access by putting a BIOS password. You can change the boot priority. Okay. You can change the boot priority. Okay, you can change the boot priority and also you can change certain hardware settings also, enabling and disabling of certain hardware settings. Okay, you can also check your system configuration. What is your CPU, RAM, hard disk information also. Okay, once you're done, change the settings, you can save and exit to save that settings also. That is your BIOS settings. What is BIOS setup or BIOS settings? What you are able to do it. Okay. Next. What is CMOS battery? BIOS chip contains your hardware related information, but the settings you have done change from the factory default. Those are all temporary. And BIOS chip also runs date and time continuously. But when system is shut down, no power supply for BIOS chip. When system is shut down, no power supply for BIOS chip. So to make continuous run of this date and time in the BIOS chip and to protect the settings from resetting to default factory default, what system use a BIOS battery. This battery is a lithium 3 volts battery which provide continuous. BIOS battery or CMOS battery is made up of lithium 3 volts battery. It provide continuous power supply to BIOS chip. Even you shut down your PC, BIOS chip will get continuous power supply from the battery. Battery give power supply, continuous power supply to your BIOS battery. So BIOS chip. So BIOS chip continuously runs even you shut down the system. It continuously runs date and time. And keep your settings like that. Okay. If you remove the battery and reinsert the battery, the settings will be reset back to the factory defaults. Here is an issue. Okay. BIOS chip is made up of CMOS technology. That's why the battery which is providing power supply, we are calling it as CMOS battery. It's a habitual names. Habit by hobby of calling this one, that one, that one. So automatically it is called like that. Okay. Yeah. CMOS checksum data or CMOS checksum error are a bad. What is CMOS checksum error are a bad? If this CMOS battery or BIOS battery is low power or no power, so there is no power supply from it to your BIOS. So BIOS resets all the settings to factory default. On the screen, it will show CMOS checksum bad. Means the BIOS battery is no power inside. So you have to change the BIOS battery. Again, you have to change all the settings, including date and time and other settings also. Okay. So it is because CMOS checksum error are bad because of BIOS battery. Just you have to pull this lever back, battery will pop outside, then remove it and insert the new battery. Like this plus is on top position, you have to put it battery. That's it. Battery number is ER2032. Okay. So these are the things. CPU, RAM, BIOS. Three things we discuss, three issues also we discuss. Yeah, we know the motherboard, all the devices, all the components of the computer are connected to the motherboard only, either directly on motherboard or to the motherboard or from back panel also we are connecting all the components, including CPU, RAM, your graphic cards, your hard disk, your front panel connections, your USB connections, power supply connections, everything is connected to the motherboard only. What is SMPS? Switch mode power supply. Our computer required DC power supply to operate, but our main power supply is AC. SMPS converts AC to DC. Okay, AC to DC. So in SMPS for desktop we use ATX. Nowadays we are using ATX 24-pin connector plus 4 or 8-pin connector extra for CPU purpose. Okay, from SMPS, we are connecting to motherboard and hard disk, CD-RAM also we are connecting. Okay, in a laptops, we have a charger. That charger is SMPS charger. It converts 220 volts to 19 volts DC power supply. Check your laptop charger. Okay, on it, what is the input voltage? What is output voltage? Output voltage shows generally plus 19 volts DC. Input is 220 or 230 volts AC power supply, 58 speakers. But system restarting itself again and again. One reason we discussed, that is CPU is getting overheated due to on CPU heat sink paste not properly applied, heat sink is not properly placed, dust formation on the heat sink fan not running properly. Okay, another possibility is there, your SMPS not giving proper enough power supply to run your computer. So better to take little extra than your system requirement. Like your system is required 300 watts, take 400 watts SMPS or 500 watts SMPS. So then it is helpful even you attach any new hardware devices. Okay, any utilization increases. So your SMPS is able to provide that enough power supply. Okay, guys, up to these components. Read the secondary storage devices. What are the secondary storage? Magnetic type, like a hard disk, floppy disk, zip drives, tape drives. Okay. Optical storages, compact discs, DVDs, CDs, DVDs, Blu-rays. NAND storages like SSDs, SD cards, pen drives, eMMCs. Okay. Check those devices. Internally, we are using your internal storage of a mobile phone or laptop or desktop is to store operating system, application, and data. For internal storages, we use internal hard disk, PATA or SATA type of hard disk we are using, internal hard disk we are using, or SSDs are we are using for our desktops and laptops and servers. For mobile phone, internal storage is eMMC chip, which is built inside on the motherboard only. And also you can store data externally. It's like a backup data or maybe some data you can't able to keep it in your system. You can keep it externally in external hard disk, USB pen drives, SD cards also you can use it. SD cards are mainly for mobile purpose. Hard disk and SSD difference. That is also one important question. Hard disk and SSD differences. Hard disk is a magnetic type of storage device, non-volatile memory device, mass storage device it is. Hard disk, two interfaces, PATA interface, SATA interfaces. Compared to PATA, SATA interface hard disk is faster data reading and writing. PATA interface means it is 40-pin connector. Using ribbon cable, we are connecting hard disk to SMPS. Hard disk to your motherboard. SATA interface, it's a 7-pin connector, a single cable we are connecting from a hard disk to motherboard. And there is a power supply connectors also there, power supply connectors. In hard disk, we have a different components. So data stores on the platter. The platter is this round disk type is nothing but called a platter. The platter rotates with a attachment to a spindle motor. So there is a spindle motor rotates this platter. This actuator arm contains a read and write header. So that use it to read and write the data on this platter. This actuator arm will move on the platter with the help of this permanent magnet actuator. So there is a lot of materials are there. Like actuator arm, read and write header, platter, spindle motor, multiple devices. One second. Okay. Okay. So this is inside components of hard disk. But externally, we are connecting either PATA interface wise or SATA. SATA is a new one, PATA is a old one. Parallel advanced technology attachment, serial advanced technology attachment. Serial SATA is a faster than PATA. SATA is faster than PATA. Okay. SATA version 3, currently we are using this version 3 is 1 Gbps data transmission speed. This is SATA cable, one side connected to motherboard, other side is connected to hard disk. Again, in the internal hard disk, we have 2.5 inch hard disk, 3.5 inch hard disk also there. 3.5 inch hard disk for desktop purpose, 2.5 inch hard disk for laptop purpose. External hard disks are used to store your backup of data or for heavy data transmission purpose. Sometimes you can't keep every data in your system, you'll keep it in separately in the hard disk. SSDs. Unlike your hard disk, SSDs do not have any mechanical devices. SSD is a NAND memory type, mass storage only. For storing your operating system, applications, and data purpose, we are using SSDs. But SSDs does not have any mechanical parts. The SSD data stores in the chips. Hard disk data stores in the platter. SSD data stores on the chips. Okay. So no mechanical, no other devices. So SSDs are faster compared to hard disk. SSDs are lighter weight, faster, smaller the size, lesser power consumption. Okay, high speed data transmission speed and read and write speed also. SSDs are more suitable for operating system and application. Okay, faster booting, faster application loading purpose. And I have written SSDs are not suitable for storing regular data because SSDs comparatively costly. Okay, current right now SSDs also coming with a normal cost only, but earlier it is very costly. Suitable for in SSDs also two models are there. SATA interface SSD, NVMe M.2 type SSD is also there. Compared to SATA interface SSD, NVMe M.2 is costly and faster also. Okay, this is the difference between hard disk and SSD. Very important question. Finally, we came up to boot processing. Very important question. In a hardware, RAM and ROM differences, BIOS, BIOS, um, and then this hard disk and SSD differences. And next, a very important one is boot processing. What is boot processing? Another one is if system is slow, what you will do? If system is not turning on, what you will do? Okay, if system restart itself again and again, what you will do? You got a blank screen. Okay, like that, what you will do? Like that, those questions are there. So we'll tell boot processing and then we will stop here there. We'll connect in afternoon. So we'll continue hardware related troubleshootings also. Okay, this is we'll stop there. Okay. And of course, operating system, types of OSs, other few application related troubleshooting also we'll see that. Guys, boot processing again, very important. Step by step loading of operating system by the computer itself. Actually, boot processing means once you power on your system, okay, after some time you got a login screen. Okay, you log into your system, so then you can start using your system. So what happens inside your computer? The step-by-step process, it is happens inside your computer is called a boot processing. It's a step-by-step process. It is done by computer itself. That is a boot processing. Otherwise, you can tell. So one way is when you power on your system, okay, after a certain period of time, we got a login screen, log into your system, then we can start utilizing the system. The process which is happened inside your computer, so it's step-by-step process which is happened inside your computer called a boot process. Also booting. Some people ask, what is booting? Booting means boot processing or booting same. Okay. Otherwise, you can make it more simple. Step-by-step loading, not installing or deploying. Step-by-step of loading operating system by the computer itself is called a boot processing. In boot processing, the first thing is anyway, you have to power on the system to start the boot process. So you power on the boot, you power on the system. The step one is post, power on self-test. So system test itself to make sure all the components working or not. What's the first step in boot processing? Post. Second, system search for the bootable device. System search for the bootable device based on the BIOS boot priority. In the BIOS boot priority list is there. So where you are searching for OS, what is the first place? Search in the CD-ROM, search in the removable device, search in the hard disk. Where is your OS? So it will give a priority list based on the list. System search for the OS, bootable device. So once it is found the bootable device, system try to find where is the bootloader. Every operating system, there is a bootloader. In our Windows, boot MGR. In our Windows, currently all current versions of Windows operating system, boot MGR is a bootloader. In Linux, it's a grabber. In Linux, grab. So first thing is post. Second is search for bootable device. Third one, find a bootloader in the bootable device. Then fourth one, load the bootloader. The bootloader will tell you where is operating system and which mode of OS has to be loaded, how to load OS. Now OS, operating system. Operating system generally two parts, guys, kernel and shell. So first OS kernel will be loaded, then system process will be started. When OS kernel will be loaded, so the kernel mainly it is interact with your hardware. So once OS kernel is loaded, then system process is started. So then shell will be loaded. You got a login screen. Once you log in, then you are able to start using your system. Okay, this is a boot processing. Easy to remember. Do like this. Power on the system. First step is post. Power on self-test to make sure all the components working on the system is working on it. Okay. All the systems in the computer working on it. Post. Recognizing the hardware and verify the hardware. Recognizing the hardware and verify the hardware. And search for the bootable device. Load the bootloader. Load operating system. Load system, process and login screen. Once user login, so user able to do anything in the system. Okay. Start working on the system. This is boot processing. Very, very important. We can't guess what question definitely they will ask, guys. That's why all previously asked questions only. That is, I'm trusting on their own. So next, what we are going to see, some of the troubleshooting questions. First important is if system is slow, what to do. If you got this kind of issues, what you will do, like a BSOD issue. So two common troubleshooting are there, very, very important. One is system is slow, what to do. Okay, if BSOD occurs, what you will do. Both we will going to see first and after lunch. Then we'll going to see that what is OS and all. Just we'll quickly revise that kind of stuff also. Guys are okay, understand. Some people left. And the final thing is, guys, you have to tell your guys to make sure everybody joins, then only I will continue. If you are not at all interested, then we can disconnect. I can take rest. I have a lot of works to do it also. Okay. Just I'm quick revising because your guys are attend the session so many days back. Okay. That's why I'm repeating. And important points only. Okay. So you have to make sure everybody must attend at 2:30.